Hello, I'm Sarri Gilman, and welcome to your self-care wheel for 2025. Some of you have done this with me for a couple of years, year after year. I have been doing this process for 10 years, so welcome to the 10th year of the self-care wheel. This is a process that I think you can use to deepen your connection to your well-being and to deepen your connection to those around you and their wellness as well. So, we're in some pretty challenging times in 2025. And I believe that when we are facing big challenges, our self-care and self-nurturance and nurturance to those around us needs to go way up to really meet some of the demands of this time. So I hope what you take away from this is a strategy and some ways for you to think about and stay checked in with what you're needing, especially in these times as the challenges are rising all around us. One of the things that I'd like you to do is draw yourself a circle. This is your wheel, your self-care wheel. And we use a circle because it really doesn't have a beginning or an end. And at any time, you can be anywhere in your wheel. You're not working on the whole thing at once, but you may be focusing on one part. So you divide your wheel in half, divide your circle in half, and then make a big V to get 3 sections at the top, like that. And then a big V to get 3 sections on the bottom. So now you have 6 sections of your pie. And in your first section, I want you to think about a mantra that you need, a phrase. Maybe it's your word for 2025. Some of you do pull a word for 2025 to keep in the front of your mind, a reminder. Um, and some of you use a mantra, a saying. I noticed the other day that I found myself saying this one phrase over and over to myself in the last few weeks since 2025 started. And so I decided this is my mantra for 2025. And I'm going to write my mantra in that one space. And my mantra is one thing at a time. And I notice that I get these thoughts going in my head, right? It's like a list. It begins to like be a pile up of like all the things you got to do. And it's like, and then do this, and then do that, and da 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 da. And the list just gets really big, really fast. Or I'm doing something and it's like, maximize your time. Do this also while you're doing that. Or you can listen to a podcast thing while you're doing this other thing. It was like, whoa, whoa. In 2025 and all that is happening around me, I just need to do one thing at a time. And so I talk back to this busy brain and I say, one thing at a time. So I'm going to pick one thing. I'm not going to get to the entire list, so put that to the side. But I'm just going to focus on one thing right now, and I get to pick my one thing from the list and do one thing at a time. And that mantra is really helping me right now. I'm sure you experience what I experience when you open up your email or look at the messages that you have coming in on text. There's just a lot coming at all of us. And however you manage that, you can write your mantra in. You can even email me your mantras. I would love to hear what seems to be showing up for you for 2025. This mantra is like a support structure. That's what I'm leaning against right now. And that support structure is I only have to do one thing at a time. While I'm doing that one thing at a time, I'm also slowing myself down. And I'm doing that with a lot of intention because I'm not in a race, I'm not superhuman, and I'm not trying to do things quickly. I know if I do things quickly, I'm just going to make mistakes or I'm going to get injured. It's one or the other. But the idea that I'm going to get more done isn't really as appealing to me as I can do things slowly and really have full attention on it and focus by doing one thing at a time. So that's my mantra, and it's taking up one of my pieces of the pie. And you just put your mantra in your piece of the pie, and it can be anything. There's no such thing as a wrong mantra. It's whatever you notice yourself saying to yourself. That's probably your soul talking to you, giving you just a little nudge and maybe a lot of wisdom. The next thing on the wheel is always on the wheel. This is always on everybody's self-care wheel. Can you guess? You should know what it is if you've ever done the wheel with me. It's eat, sleep, and exercise all in one space. Eat, sleep, exercise. And I put that in my next square. There you go, my next little piece of pie, my next triangle. I guess I'll call these little triangles. Eat, sleep, exercise. I have noticed just this morning, I was talking about this with my husband because I've had like 2 nights where I've woken up in the middle of the night and I've just been reading this book that I'm really loving, Page Turner. So I'm just getting into it as soon as I wake up. Not a great idea because I really need my sleep, but I'm getting less sleep. And if you're waking up in the middle of the night, you've got to figure out really what's going to help you sleep. So this year I got myself a weighted blanket. Finally, oh my gosh, this thing is like a miracle. I love my weighted blanket. The thing about my weighted blanket is if I do wake up and I'm reading, I go back to sleep fairly quickly because the weighted blanket, I don't know, like snuggles me in and I just like settle right back down and then I go back to sleep. So a weighted blanket was like a bonus to help me sleep. Do the things that help you sleep. If it means cutting back on your coffee and your caffeine, if it means making sure you get more exercise so you are more tired and more ready to sleep. Whatever it takes for you, looking at your diet. Are you having too much sugar before bed? Figuring out what it takes to make sleeping a better experience for you because we all need our sleep and there is so much research on it. You can just Google yourself silly, but there is a lot of research out there that talks about how important sleep is for all of us. Eating a healthy diet and exercising. And so for me, exercise is a daily thing, and that can go from walking to swimming to body pump. I've added in some yoga, you know, add in whatever you need to add in. Swimming is something that really I love. I've added in a water aerobic class now. Change it up because you can get really bored with your exercise if it's a routine and you can feel like you're also hitting a plateau. And maybe you're one of those people that says, I hate exercise. I don't like doing this. Um, your body just doesn't do well if it just sits all the time. So making sure that your body is getting stretched and getting movement in some way. There are so many choices out there. There's really no reason to just give yourself the excuse of, I just don't like exercise, period. That's kind of too big of a phrase. And I want you to be careful that you don't throw out everything in that phrase when really there might be some very gentle, soothing exercise that feels good for your body. So let's not try to throw out everything. Find something that you're willing to do, that you can commit to, that you make part of your routine, just like eating and sleeping, because it's really important and essential for your body and for your mind, for your mental health too. And I think all of us can use a little mental health well-being in these times. So the eating, sleeping, and exercise is not just good for your body, it's also so good for your mind. And that's all connected. And so, what you're doing in that process is you're helping your whole system. Sometimes in my work, I work with people who say they are stressed, and I ask them to break that down. Like, don't use a whole blanket word, stress for everything. Let's be specific. What exactly do you mean when you're stressed? Does that mean you had an emotionally difficult last few days? Does that mean you were feeling a lot of grief? Does that mean you were angry? Does that mean you were exhausted? What does stressed mean? Does that mean you were worried about someone and you were over worrying and couldn't sleep? Like, what does that look like for you? Stop using the blanket word stress, because when we get specific and say exactly what it is, then we can begin to address what it is. And if you can't stop the stress from coming at you, which is normal, you're not superhuman, we can't stop the stress from coming at all of us. But when we can't stop it, we can at least prepare better for it. That's what the whole idea of this wheel is for you to put things on that help you buffer for a little bit of what is coming at you. I don't know what is coming at you specifically. You may have more things coming at you than someone else. That may be based on who's in your family or where you live in the world right now, or what's happening in your culture, or what's happening in your job, or what's happening in your relationships. So, whatever is going on in your life, you know what's coming at you. You may also not know what will be coming at you. And so self-care is about creating a bit of a buffer, a support structure that you can lean into and that you're using to help you um, find your recovery when the blows get really big on you, and find your resiliency when you need to call on more strength than maybe you feel like you have. And when you allow yourself to rest, because it's been so much. So all of that is connected. So I'll be calling out things for you to put into your self-care wheel, but you define it very specific to what's going on in your life. So the next area is to look at what is reasonable caring for yourself with caring for others. What is that? You can call it balance, or you can call it who's in your boat. How do you protect yourself from overgiving? There's a lot of different ways for you to look at this next piece of the pie. And I will say that I want you to think about who is in your boat. Who are you deeply responsible to? Who are you responsible for? Who do you choose to be responsible to and for? And I want you to list the names of the people that are already in your boat. So I'm writing in my boat. And then have a list of who are those people that you really will always show up for it, that maybe you're totally on call for. It can't be everyone. That's not realistic. And it can't be every time somebody asks you for something or somebody has a need. You're going to have to look at the times that we're in, and be very careful with yourself and your energy and how much you have so that you really can take care of the people that are in your boat when they need you, and that you have that to give, and that you haven't drained yourself out on every need that goes by you, every call that you hear. You have to be specific about what you really can offer and how much you offer and what's realistic for you. Because in 2025, the needs are enormous around all of us. So I want you to call this piece of your triangle your boat. In your boat. Who is in your boat? So that you stay very aware of, these are the people that I am, number one, most responsible, responsive to. And maybe who's in that next layer, so that when other things come along, you're able to say to yourself, maybe I need to pass on that because I already have 12 people in my boat that are my number ones. And with those 12 people, anything can happen at any time. And I can't offer that much more to number 13 or number 20. But maybe I can offer something. And maybe I can help them develop who the resources are for them, for their boat, and talk about that with people. Who's in your boat? Who do they have in their boats? You can even look at people in your lives that you're worried about that don't seem to have enough resources around them and talk about where else can they develop resources, because you cannot be somebody's total and only resource if you already have these people in your boat. So I really want you to think carefully, because I think our times are calling for us to notice that. And that doesn't mean you can't give and volunteer and spend your time helping others. Please, we need you to do that. I do that, you do that. We all need to be participating in our communities in some ways that are helpful. But you also have to be realistic with how much of that is available. Some people are going to have a lot more time available for that, and other people may not, based on who's in their boat. So that brings us to time budgeting. So that goes on your wheel. How are you budgeting your time? How are you thinking about your time? And how are you making sure that, with your hours in the day that you're awake, and the week that you have in front of you, and the month that you have, and 2025 that's in front of us, how are you budgeting where your time goes, who you're spending it with, and how that time needs to be used to also maintain your resilience, maintain your buffer, give yourself that eat, sleep, and exercise nurturance, maintaining yourself, right? How do you keep that maintained while you're also managing the other things in your life that you have time budgeted yourself for, whether that is work or connection or a class that you're taking or things that are taking up a lot of your time? Which brings me to, if you are in some kind of recovery, whether it be drugs and alcohol, or it be cancer, or it be some other health issue that is taking up a lot of your recovery juice and your time, that may take all of your time, is your recovery. And so you can either write recovery as its own triangle if you know you're already in something very demanding on your body and on your time, or you can put it in your time budgeting that recovery is taking up like 90% of it. One of the things I started doing for my time budgeting that I am continuing is, on my calendar, in addition to all the things that I commit to or sign up for, or my work time, or my classes, or my volunteering, or my exercise classes. I mean, there's a lot on the calendar, right? But in addition to all of that, I put in these blank spaces that are, sort of blocks of time, 3-hour chunks. And in those 3-hour chunks, I can use 3 of those for social events in the week. That's kind of the rule I've given myself on my calendar, 3 social connection times out of those blocks. And those 3-hour chunks I can book in other ways if, you know, maybe I want to be working on my writing, maybe I want to do some art. I can book time with myself, I can book time socially, but I don't go past booking anything more than 3 social events in a week, beyond all the other things on my calendar. And so that visual on my calendar really helps to contain me from not being overscheduled or being overscheduled socially when I really, also need some time for myself and my own projects and interests. So time budgeting is really important. However you decide to do that, whatever method works for you, just be thinking about how do you check in with that budget each week, just like it would be, you know, money, or, like how you know that you're not overspending in your account. How do you stay on top of what your financial resources are? It's the same thing with time. How do you stay on top of it? How do you know how you're using it? And how do you make sure that you're not overusing more than you actually have? Something for you to think about. Okay, so we have those parts of the wheel. The next part of the wheel is your relationships. Just as I was talking about social connecting time. And if you have a partner in your life like I do, I have a husband, it's important to me to have time for my family relationships, which includes time with my husband, time with the kids, time with the grandkids. Where is this sort of relationship time? And time with my friends and our friends, right? And so, how do I look at making sure that my relationships that are essential to my soul are getting the time and attention that they need to thrive, that I need to thrive, that the relationship needs to stay thriving? How do I make sure that that's an important thing on my wheel? Because those relationships are, part of that thing that I find very sustaining, is these really important connections. And in fact, today, before I got on with you, I have a standing Friday time with one of my friends every Friday, 10 a.m., right after Body Pump. I get on with her and we Zoom and we catch up about the week, and we share news and we share thoughts and we share feelings and we share stories. I have another friend that I do this with on Wednesday nights. We get on at 7:30 for 30 minutes and we just catch up and stay very connected. This is some of my friendship time, in addition to my significant relationships with, family. There's also my girlfriend time, and how are we making sure that that happens? And I have one girlfriend that comes Thursday afternoon after I'm done volunteering with the kids in the first grade. She pops in. And so we have this time together, and that becomes the relationship part of the wheel. So you have on your wheel, let's go through it again. You have your mantra. Mine is one thing at a time. You have your eat, sleep, and exercise triangle. You have your who's in your boat. You have your time budgeting. You have your relationships, making sure you have time for social relationships, family relationships, all those important relationships. And then your last place on your self-care wheel is joy. What are you doing that gives you joy? What is the sunshine giving you joy? Maybe it is your relationships and family. Maybe it is your one thing at a time. Maybe it is how you're using your time through the week with the things that you've signed up for. But think about your joy spot and just make sure that you are giving to yourself the joy that you need so that you feel sustained. So what is it that gives you joy? So I have quite a few things on my list that give me joy. And those sustaining things are things that I make sure that I am doing regularly, that I am doing weekly, that sometimes I'm doing daily. And if I'm having a really hard time, I'm reaching for those things because they are sustainers. This is like saying every plant needs sunshine and they need water. So do you. And a lot of times when people are going through very hard times, the thing they give up are all the things that give them sunshine and water. And I find that that really doesn't work for anybody. You still have to leave time for some of those things that give you sunshine and water. So be sure that you know what your joy fill is, what fills you up, what goes in that joy bucket, listed in there. And then the final thing that you do with your self-care wheel is, let me see if I have this handy. I do have it handy. So I have some watercolor paints in my little art toolkit palette. And I always invite you to come up with a way to decorate your self-care wheel. So I'm going to go right into the joy area and pick up some color here. See that? And I'm going to start. It's one of my favorite colors. I just love that teal color. I have no idea why, but it shows up on a lot of things that I do. So I am just going to fill in that area with that color. And I invite you to really spend time with your wheel, decorating it and making it something you want to look at, keeping it in a spot that you can see it. I've heard some people put the self-care wheel up in their bathroom mirror so they can see it every day. I've heard other people stick it on top of their journal. But here you go. See, make it into something beautiful. And use whatever you have laying around. Please don't go out and buy things. Just use whatever you have laying around. Feel free to take a picture of it and send it to me for your 2025 self-care wheel. This will be up and available to you on YouTube, and I'll send it out in my newsletter so you can share it with people. And I wish all of you the very, very best in very, very challenging times. So take good care.